Welcome to the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Rowe. He's Money Mainville. We also have the Folsom Frenzy podcast on with us tonight. We've got Chase and Topher talking a little prime time, Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes. Welcome back into the Big 12, boys.
God, it's so good to be back. And just a quick frame of reference for people who might be listening. We are a Colorado podcast made from people who have been Colorado fans for a long time. So pretty much all of us in our group, two of us are here today. We have 5 total, have been literal lifetime CU fans. Most of us had parents that went to Colorado, grew up in Colorado. And so we love Prime. We're Prime fans as well. But you are getting people who are nostalgic and excited to be back in the Big 8, Big 12. Really excited. We went to the Allen Fieldhouse and told everyone there that we wanted to go back. And then, less than a year later, we're on our way back. So lots of good feelings for the Big 12. Cannot wait to be back. Very excited to be in a conference with people who are actually going to care about football.
It's a beautiful thing. And people make fun of us here in flyover country, but it's I know the SEC has some diehard football fans and whatever, but it's just such a striking difference when you talk to fan bases and whatever else, and it's April and they're like, "Oh, how's your basketball team?" And like, I don't know, we're thinking about our football team. So it's I know we like all Big 12 sports here, but the football really is a different breed in the Big 12. So let's start with Colorado. And instead of the offseason, I do want to go back to kind of the last few years in the Pac-12, all of the uncertainty. It did feel like once the 4 corner schools were approached, Colorado and Arizona were the two that were kind of like, all right, let's do it. And Arizona State and Utah were dragging their feet. How did that process go from the Colorado side? Was the fan base excited to get back to the Big 12? I know you guys were, but was it a kind of a let's hurry up and go, or was it like, well, if the Pac-12 survives, we can survive here a little bit longer?
I think right away the fan base was pretty excited, even the newcomers, because they saw the couple of late night Pac-12 games and they were like, I do not want to stay up till midnight or 1 a.m. watching my football team. And that was a uniquely Pac-12 experience. And there was rumblings for a while, and people saw how hard it was to watch just Pac-12 games. I think like the first 4 or 5 of our games were on national television, and then we suddenly played, was it Arizona State or Arizona, where it was only on Pac-12 network, and you had 50% of the population throwing their hands up going, I don't have a Pac-12 network.
Way more than 50%. Way more than 50%. And I think it's important to remember that a lot of current Colorado fans and students are largely from California, and there's a reason why we went to the Pac-12. And if for people who have really got their history books out, they'll remember that Colorado left the Big 12 because it looked like when Nebraska left, the entire conference was imploding. Texas was leaving, probably to the Pac-12 at the time, which is crazy to think about now. And so Colorado tried to get out early on the Big 12. Big 12 survived. Big 12 is a cockroach, man, because I thought for sure when OU and Texas were out, the hateful 8, I felt horrible for you guys. I was really excited to bring in some of you on a lifeboat to the Pac-12 and Uno reverse card yet again. The Big 12 cannot be killed, and instead, you're all of a sudden looking on the outside, looking, oh my God, we're going to get left behind. And so, I was never super worried. I think, Colorado has the connections, one of the founding members of the Big 12. And I know that doesn't, totally make a difference, but it felt hard to believe that the old Big 12 teams, especially the ones that were in the conference back when we were there, would have left us to die. But I think that's partially why Colorado knew what it's like to be a Big 12 school. And I think that's probably why we were the first team to announce that, not, necessarily because the others were planning on not coming, but I think it made a lot of sense, especially with USC and UCLA out the door.
So I am, I would say, uniquely qualified to love Deion Sanders as a Dallas Cowboys fan, lifelong. In 2018, when Deion Sanders, I don't even think he'd gone to Jackson State yet. I was all in on hiring Deion Sanders to Texas Tech because I saw the writing on the wall. Hey, this transfer portal thing, he can recruit. You'll get your foot into Dallas. Everyone still loves Deion Sanders. And I was laughed at. People hated me. They did not want Deion Sanders. And then when Gary Patterson left TCU and he had been at Jackson State for a couple of years, I was like, TCU has to hire Deion Sanders. He would murder in the Metroplex. All of the money would come. And then Colorado out of nowhere hires Deion Sanders. How was that, let's call it a journey, been in the last couple of seasons there with Deion and the road to where you are now?
Totally transformational. And Topher, I'll just very quickly. So after Colorado lost to Utah with Carl Durrell, most people listening to this podcast probably don't know who Carl Durrell is, for good reason, because he was our head coach that we hired. And I'm not making this up. Part of the rationale for hiring him after Mel Tucker left us for Michigan State was he's local. He already lives here, so he probably won't leave us for another program. Like, that was legitimately part of the hiring, and people were like, oh my God. And so at the end of that season, the second season, we had gotten absolutely boat raced by Utah. And I actually called Topher, who's on the pod today, and said, we were the fans that got there, right when gates opened, even if the kickoff was at 11 a.m. We are diehards. And I was like, I legitimately do not think like my health can take this anymore. Like, I was like, I am dying every week. I like somehow find a way to be disappointed by this team. And I just can't take it anymore. And I was like, this program does not care. There's no direction. And then all of a sudden there started to be a little bit of smoke about, Deion Sanders interviewing at Colorado. And I told Topher, I was like, it's not going to happen. And Topher was like, it's going to happen. I was like, it's not going to, nothing good has happened to Colorado in my lifetime, because keep in mind, so my dad went to Colorado. He was there freshman year, 1990. They won the national championship. 94, he won the Heisman. So his freshman year, national championship, senior year, a Heisman. My freshman year, we went, I think 3-9. And then my senior year, we went 5-7. Like, and that was a pretty good year. 5-7 was a great year at Colorado. So, that was kind of the expectations, and nothing good ever happened to Colorado. And then all of a sudden, I think they knew, right? College football is changing. You had to swing for the fences, because Colorado was not one of these teams where you had been okay, where you had been like respectable, not great. You went to a bowl game every couple of years. That would have been fine. Colorado was not that. Colorado was the laughing stock. It was, frankly, a lot like Kansas was in the Big 12 for a long time here. And it was pretty clear that like there's going to be the haves and the have-nots in college football, and Colorado was on the wrong side of that. And so they either needed to swing for the fences and go for it all. And who knows, maybe it doesn't work out. And they did that. So credit to our athletic director. He found a way. We hadn't paid a coach more than $3 million, $3.5 million, found a way to find $6 million. And, everyone's seen everything about the money. It's worked out for Colorado for the best. We haven't even really won a lot of games. Coach Prime could leave tomorrow, and it would have been a great investment for the university. And so raising the status and having people talk about it. And I mean, for the love of God, having a Colorado football athlete on the front of NCAA 25, right? If I had told you that 5 years ago, you would have laughed at me in the face. Everyone would have laughed at me in the face. And so that's been the excitement, right? Is we're a very hungry program. We sold out when we were literally going to go 0-12, and then we beat Cal in double overtime. We sold that game out, right? Like, these fans want to watch football in Boulder, Colorado. That's why I think we're a better fit for the Big 12 than we were the Pac-12, where no one sells out their stadiums, including, these new Big 10 schools. But we were so hungry for a winner, and Coach Prime has not necessarily brought a winner yet, but he has brought hope and he has brought respect. And that's, I think, what's really exciting for Colorado. And I know a lot of people hate us now, and that's awesome. I love it, because at least you're thinking about us. Because 5 years ago, we were the like poor kid with cancer in the corner that no one would talk to because you felt so bad, right? You were like, oh my God, could you imagine how awful that is? And now you hate us because Coach Prime runs his mouth, but he runs his mouth and he backs it up, at least historically. So we'll see.
Yeah, I remember the AD at Colorado in the opening press conference saying, yeah, we've promised this money. We don't have it, but we'll find it and we'll pay Deion Sanders. I guess that's all worked out because he's not bouncing checks and leaving.
Not only did they pay it, but they paid off the breakup contract with Carl Durrell. So that's how much money he's brought in for the school, which has been huge.
Now, is that are all these celebrities that are showing up to the games, are they paying the way, or is it just boosters? What's going on there?
So your guess might be as good as mine. My guess is the exposure. The donator base was totally not non-existent, but unwilling to donate for good reason to that Carl Jarrell program, right? Like you would look at that and be like, I would sooner send my money to Lincoln, Nebraska, right? Not actually. I mean, that's clearly not true, but that was kind of the mentality. And so finding the donors and engaging the alumni and, selling out tickets, right? That makes a difference. Season tickets, they used to literally call and beg me, and I was able to renew mine purely through an act of God, right? But like that was the thing is selling those tickets and the exposure and the bigger sponsorships. And yeah, probably it doesn't hurt to have celebrities on campus as well. That's my guess. It's not like we're getting a bigger share of the old Pac-12 revenue or the new Big 12 revenue, but that definitely doesn't hurt either, being able to stay consistent as you look at those Pac-2 teams.
Yeah, and I have a guy that's pretty close in the higher ups and donors for CU, and the way he describes the meetings is like they were hungry to donate to a program, but they didn't have a reason to until they brought Dion in, and they said they would make structural changes to make us competitive in the transfer portal. Part of what ended up being the 2022 debacle was the fact that we couldn't even be competitive in the transfer portal because a lot of the student athletes credits would not transfer if they were an undeclared major, and it was causing a lot of issues. So even if you had an athlete that wanted to come and play for the Buffs, could not do it because the credits wouldn't transfer. So they ended up going to another school that had that structurally figured out. Our president kind of made a commitment. It's like, we want to have a good football program again. And those things have been mitigated and corrected in the structural program. And it's excited the donor base to the point where the money's starting to flow. Now we're organized with an NIL deal. It's really quite a transformation.
Speaking on the transfer portal with Deion Sanders, I think he brought his Louis in year one. And I want to say 53 transfers there in year one. In and out. I don't believe it was as extensive in year two. But who are some of the new guys, fresh faces in Colorado world coming in 2024?
So I think the biggest transformation, I don't know, for the people listening, how much Colorado football you watch, but if you watch pretty much any of it, you saw how atrocious our lines were. And we knew before the season started last year, we said on our podcast, we said our lines are going to be atrocious for two reasons. One, they're paper thin, and two, they're really small. And so you're bringing in guys that are used to FCS speed and size and asking them to come play at the FBS level. And, people disagree, but it matters. It does matter. And so I don't know if we have a huge, big name necessarily this year. In the transfer portal, we lost Cormani McLean. We lost Dylan Edwards at Kansas State. So we've lost some big names, but I think our team as a whole is going to be a lot better this year because we're bringing in more depth on the lines. And I think that's really going to make a big difference. Shador's the truth. He's legit. Even if you hate Colorado, you look at him and go, that kid's pretty special. I'd love to have him. I'm a Vikings fan. I'd love to have him on the Vikings. But he's running for his life. I mean, literally broke his neck last year. Travis Hunter getting injured was kind of unfortunate. It was kind of a cheap shot play from Colorado State, but that hurt as well. So the team's going to be healthier. The team's had more time to vibe. And I think, that matters. Bringing in 60 new guys. I'm sure, if you guys played football in high school, you know how much that matters, having that time to gel. And so I don't know. I don't think you're going to see a lot of flashy names. We brought in some great names. Will Shepard from Vanderbilt, who was their best wide receiver there. That should be able to help out. That's the big name that sticks out to me. But you're also bringing back some really good guys in Shador and Travis. Travis Hunter is going to be the best player on the field in every game we play this year, not because I have a big head, but because he's really just that talented. And I think most people will agree with me. Would not be surprised if he won the Heisman. I know it's probably not likely, but that kind of talent, definitely going to be a top 5 draft pick if he stays healthy. So those are the big names to look for. But really, I think you're going to see a wholesale improvement on the lines.
Money, you got anything?
I think it's interesting, how you mentioned even if it was just for 1 year, it was a good investment. Because I remember week one, like when I'm looking at TV slots every week, trying to figure out how I'm going to break up my Saturday and where I'm going to rot on the couch. I think the first thing that caught my eye and probably a lot of people's eyes was that game against TCU, and obviously very much lived up to the hype. But even then, it was clear that it was an unknown of, what is Colorado really going to look like? Completely different team. You brought in this talent that, what's it going to look like against a Big 12 team? And obviously a great game and a great start to the season for Colorado. I know there was a bad loss to a really good Oregon team and then a close loss to USC, but really started the season out strong and then kind of ended the season pretty rough. I think it was 6 straight that got dropped to end the season. So I guess just kind of curious. I know a lot of those games are on Pac-12 Network, or they start way after my bedtime on Saturday. So kind of talk me through a little bit about what kind of led to that downside, and if it was, attributed to the offensive and defensive line or injuries or kind of a combination of those two things.
That first loss against Oregon that we had, that was really bad. That was definitely because of the O-line. Oregon had one of the best defensive lines, I think, in all of college football last year. And they are big, they are fast, they are athletic, and those are 3 things that we couldn't use to describe our offensive line. I think Shedeur was sacked like 8 or 9 times before the third quarter, and then we just decided, to throw the towel, get him out of there. After that, it just kind of was remnants of the culture that had been there before. And I think it takes a lot to cleanse the program of all those bad habits. I distinctly remember being in the stadium for that Stanford loss, and that was, every subsequent thing that led to that overtime, that led to that loss. As a Buffs fan, you just go, I could see it coming from a mile away. You could just feel it in the stadium. You could feel all the fan base like, we know what's coming. It's too good right now. And that would just be the second time I've seen the Buffs blow like a 30-plus point lead, go into double overtime and blow it. So I think this year, I really hope that we've trained out some of those, tendencies. We removed the penalties. We were a highly penalized team last year, both on both sides of the ball. If we protect Shedeur a little bit better, I think some of those 1-score games down the road start to flip our way, and I think we look at a much more complete team.
All right, I'm looking through the roster here on the trusty website ourlads.com. So I don't know if it's completely accurate here, but you can tell me if I'm wrong. 13 of the 2 deep, so 22 deep on offense, 13 of them first-year transfers into the Colorado program. 2 starting wide receivers, Will Shepard and LeJontay Wester. You have a true freshman potentially starting at left tackle, and Jordan Seaton, big-time recruit there. And then you have a senior and a junior on the right side of the offensive line, Justin Mayers and Khalil Benson transferring in. And then you have a new tight end, Sam Hart, and all of those are first-time transfers. Does that transform the offensive line enough? I know it's tough to have a left tackle that's a true freshman, but if there are elite high school recruits that come in at any position, they can make a difference, especially on an offensive line like that. I remember Texas Tech had a high 4-star guy that came in and started 4 or 5 years through the COVID. I think he probably got 4 years in, but do you think that is enough? And then I think the entire backup offensive line on the 2 deep is new transfers. So you have Houston Phillips, Yakiri Walker, Tyler Johnson, Wyatt Hummel, Ethan Boyd, Cash Cleveland, Jack Owens. I mean, you got like 15 offensive line transfers in. So is that enough to make a change?
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Rob. I played offensive line in high school. So I think there's something very important about having a line that plays consistently together. And I think that matters just in my experience. I don't think this is a line that's going to be able to do that. I think there's some question marks. I think the good thing we have going for us is that it could not possibly be worse. It literally could not possibly be worse. You could go put 5 trash cans and an automated ball snapper and get approximately the same coverage time as what Shedeur had last season. I mean, it was atrocious. And so Jordan Seaton, a lot is being asked for him, right? He is being asked to come in as I think he's a true 5-star. I mean, they always change the rankings and what have you, but a stud, right? He's got the size. He could add some weight. He probably will. But he's a plug and play kind of guy. And so really excited about him. Some of these transfers, we'll see. I really don't think they could be any worse. I do think the other component being that they're going to have practice with each other throughout the entire offseason. Whereas, when Prime came in a little bit behind schedule and then had to go recruit all of his guys and had to get rid of all the previous guys. And, I think he made a mistake there. I think he made a mistake in cutting some of those O-line guys because that depth would have been great to have last season. And that's the problem, right? We get some injuries on that line and we are right back to where we were. If I were betting, I love, the gamble. I just have to hit the gambling part of the Gamblin Gauchos, but I love our over this season at 5.5. There's a lot of juice on it, but I find it very hard to believe that Colorado's not going to find a way to win 6 games. The problem is they're going to have to win them early in the season, I think, because injuries are going to take a toll on this team again, and I think it's going to start to wear down. That's my opinion. Topher probably disagrees with me because he's more optimistic about it. But I think, there's some concerns there. We don't have the depth, but that's kind of college football these days, right? Like if guys aren't starting, they're gone. So you don't have a guy that sits in the rafters for 3 seasons and then comes in to fill the holes. And so that's kind of the concern there. The other concern is the D-line. I don't know if that's going to matter as much in the Big 12. Big 12, at least, reputationally is a run and gun, sling in, not a power run kind of conference. Utah loves to do that power run, and it's gonna bang some teams in the mouth. I think it's gonna surprise some people in the Big 12 this year. But we gotta find a way to stop the run because our secondary is elite. It's sick. But it doesn't matter because they don't have to respect us because our linebackers and our line were poor at best last year. And they got to find a way to make a difference there as well. Those guys are all predominantly transfers as well. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you because I know you mentioned the offense, but those are kinds of, in my opinion, those are the issues. And I think if you're going to build a team like Deion Sanders has, and it might become a model moving forward, very easy to get skill guys because you can promise them play time. But Deion Sanders is if I were the best corner in the country, of course I want to play for Deion Sanders. If I'm the best left tackle in the country, that's a tougher sell. So I think we're going to struggle there. I think we're going to struggle there forever, as long as Deion Sanders is the head coach. And so if we can find some guys to give him some time, Shadour's special enough. He doesn't need the best offensive line in football. He just needs something better than some trash cans in front of him.
Or let's move to the skill positions. I believe your starting running back is at Kansas State now. Is that true? And then wide receivers, is Travis Hunter, because I've seen a lot of like mock drafts and whatever else that he's going to focus on wide receiver in the NFL. Is he going to do that at Colorado, or is he going to play true both ways again, even after the injuries and otherwise? Is he a corner or is he a wide receiver here in 2024?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
For all intents and purposes, he's indicated that he wants to go both ways, and I think Deion will be the one that lets him do that. I think he will be more beneficial, more helpful for us, just focusing on corner. I think we have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position that allows a little bit more flexibility on that side of the ball. But I think if he's in shape and he feels good enough, I expect to see him on both sides of the ball.
And really quickly, Coach Prime in the Prime on Prime show, which I recommend if anyone's interested, has made it clear, like, Coach Prime played both ways for a long time. It was very important to him. He's not going to tell Travis no. So, and I guarantee you, because Travis is a great kid, he wants to play football. He's going to play both sides. It might be to his detriment. An NFL team sure as hell is not going to let him play both ways, at least not all the time. But I don't, I'm conflicted because on one hand, he's an elite wide receiver. He's got great hands, but I think he could be a top 3 corner in the NFL. Like, he's that talented at corner. I don't know if he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. So I personally think he should 100% focus on corner. It's not going to happen at Colorado, for sure.
You're on mute, Rob.
Unmute myself. Thank you. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball here. Unless you want to talk more about Shedeur Sanders, I think you've covered him pretty well. I will say, I think him and Noah Fafita have the opportunity to be the 2 best quarterbacks in the Big 12. I do not trust Cam Rising after missing a season. I know a lot of people say he's the truth. I've also seen some interviews with him, and he just seems like a goober. Don't feel like he's a great leader over there. Shedeur obviously also has some moments in his press conferences. Let's talk a little about Shedeur Sanders. He basically went full LeVar Ball at the Big 12 Media Day, saying he never lost at the FCS level. even though parentheses regular season games, because I think they lost that bowl game that they played in. Do you like the hubris? Obviously, you like Deion Sanders' hubris, but he's been doing it for 40 years. Deion has been Deion for a long time. Do you like coming into a new conference and you're basically saying we're going to run the world and win every game and never lose?
I love it. Inject it right into my veins. Okay. I think in football you have to have that swagger, you have to have that confidence, right? There's two or three positions on the field. You have to be that guy, right? I think if you're a cornerback, you have to have a big head and say, I'm going to be that guy that shuts you down and I'm going to win every rep. If you're the quarterback, you have to be that guy that says, give me the ball, I'm going to win this game. I think exuding that from a leadership position, I think is infectious to the program. Now, whether or not we back that up, who knows? But I love the energy that brings, and I love the swagger that it comes with it.
And when you don't back it up, believe me, in our Twitter mentions last season, oh my God. And it wasn't even us who said it, but like, good God, is it awful to have in your mentions. So that's why I wish they would chill out a little bit until they can walk the walk, but that's just not how they are. And, we're ride or die with them no matter what. It's just, oh my God, when it doesn't go our way, is it atrocious in our mentions? Just awful.
All right, defensively, a lot of new faces as well. I'm looking here at the 2 deep again. All 4 defensive line positions, including that edge rusher, brand new and seniors. And then you also have, I think, 2 more seniors, 3 more in the 2-3 deep. So you're going to have some age there, but new faces. Is that going to be transformed enough to compete in the Big 12? You mentioned the running game, stopping the run. I think you'll be a little bit surprised at what's going on in the Big 12 in the last couple of years. There's some really good running backs in the Big 12. Ollie Gordon, Taj Brooks, RJ Harvey. You're familiar with Kansas State's running game with their new running back. And they also have some others. Iowa State is always running the ball. Utah coming in. So there's a lot of schools out there that are running the ball now. How is that going to be with the front 7 here at Colorado?
Yeah, let me just make a quick correction. So I actually got my grad degree at Penn State. So I am used to Big Ten ground and pound, like Iowa 36 runs in a row kind of stuff. So I'm just talking, not to say Big 12 has some great running backs. Big 12 has some great running back tradition, certainly as well. And so I'm more talking about how it feels like more teams trend towards the air raid, where I actually think that advantages Colorado in our skill group. Especially in our secondary. If I were game planning for Colorado, I would game plan to run the ball. I would plan to try to get the ball first, because Colorado feels like a team when it's coached under Deion Sanders that when things are clicking for us and going well, everything's fine. I think Colorado, other than that USC game that we almost came back and won, but Colorado is not shown under Deion Sanders that they can take a punch and get back on the horse super well. And I'm just going to, before Topher corrects me on that, I'm going to remind him that we lost 7 games in a row at the end of the season, and a team that can take a punch in the mouth doesn't lose 7 games in a row. And it felt like after Oregon really socked us in the mouth, we were on top of the world for a long time. We get punched in the mouth really hard, and the team just quit. And
How long were we leading CSU?
Okay, you beat a G5 team. Congratulations.
Okay,
you beat the team you were supposed to. But they almost came back against a very good USC team with Caleb Williams. That showed some signs. But if I'm game planning for Colorado, the defense needs to be on top. The defense needs to be able to control. The offense needs to be able to run and control and not panic. And I think some teams in the Big 12 are going to be better at exploiting that than others. Utah's been great about exploiting that for years. Unfortunately, we come in with some baggage. We're coming home to the Big 12. We have to bring our ugly brother Utah with us, who has been terrorizing people for years, and I'm sure will be obnoxious in the Big 12 as well. So it's a very long answer to your question of, is the defense improved enough? I don't know. We've got some experience coming in. We've got some size coming in. We've got some guys that are really good. Are we going to be that improved? I have a feeling we're going to be pretty similar to last year, if I'm being totally honest, where we have a very good secondary and a very much to be desired linebacker core and defensive line, other than Levante Bentley, who is a stud.
Rob's on mute again. So I want to ask y'all about something specifically related to expectations and kind of looking at next year. And I know it's kind of, year one was really a rebuild and kind of getting all new faces onto the roster. This kind of feels more like a retooling, not to say there wasn't quite a bit of loss on this team throughout the offseason, but I think you've obviously seen that when things are clicking, as you said, and going well, this team has a lot of talent to compete. So, you set year one expectations at 4-8. I know, we were talking about the schedule a little bit before we got going here, but kind of a tough non-conference schedule, in my opinion, with North Dakota State, who's sneaky good, Nebraska in Lincoln, obviously, and then Colorado State on their home turf. So, looking at the 4-8 record, I know it's impossible to predict a season, here on August 4th, but what's kind of the general expectation in your mind of wins and losses come next year?
All right, Topher, make sure you answer after me because you're going to be more optimistic than I am. I think if you schedule North Dakota State non-conference, you should immediately be fired as a athletic director. That is just so awful. There's no winning that game. North Dakota State is really, really good. You guys know that. Most Big 12 fans will know that. Most college football fans will know that. There's no winning that game. So it's in Boulder. It's on a Thursday night. Like everything that could do, kind of witching zone goofiness is happening in that game. I will not be surprised if we lose that game. Do not come in our Twitter mentions if we lose that game. I expect to lose that game. That being said, I think over unders 5.5. I love the over. I don't love the over by a lot. I just think that Colorado has enough teams on the schedule where they will be able to kind of get in control and dominate the narrative to win 6 games this season. I don't know where they're going to come. Don't ask me because it's so hard to tell. I think this is a great year for the Big 12 because it is, one, you've got a bunch of new faces. 2, the newer guys are still trying to figure themselves out and frankly have been kind of terrible thus far, a little bit disappointing. And 3, it's wide open. Anyone could win this Big 12 this season. I would not bet on a Big 12 winner. If I were going to do it, I'd bet on Colorado because I have to. But, I think anyone can compete for it. I would not be surprised if Colorado won 10 games. I would not be surprised if Colorado won 4 games again and I delete my Twitter account. But, if I'm making the bet, which I already have hammered this bet, I'm taking the over, even paying the juice. I would be totally happy with a 6-6 season. That's not what Prime is looking to do. You guys know Prime is a winner. He wants to win. 6-6 is not good enough. 6-6, considering where this program was 2 years ago, would be a phenomenal improvement. So there's my Debbie Downer prediction. Topher, I'm sure you think we're going to go 12-0.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. We're 12-0 until we're not. But realistically, I really think the ceiling for this team is probably about 8-4. And I think the floor is probably 4-8. I am not as scared of North Dakota State as Chase is. I really do think we're going to control that game and we're going to come out swinging. I am very worried about playing in Nebraska. We've had this long streak of not losing Nebraska, and nothing lasts forever. I'm a little worried about that game, especially because their quarterback looks for real. And after that, I can't wait for the CSU game because I think that's the only time they're going to sell out their stadium. It's going to be mostly black and gold. From there in the Big 12, who knows? But I think we're going to come into conference play at 2-1, which means we just need to get 4 conference wins, get that 6-win mark, make a bowl game. And I think that's very realistic, but I'm hoping for 8-4.
Yeah, the schedule's kind of good news, bad news for Colorado. Good news is you're going to sell out a bunch of games. You're back in the Big 12. You've got a Big 8 game there in non-conference play. You've got another rivalry with Colorado State, if you want to call it that. Bad news is you have the toughest schedule in the Big 12, and I really don't think that's debatable. West Virginia has a pretty tough schedule, but the run that Colorado finishes on is fairly insane. Starting on October 12th, you play Kansas State, the second favorite in the Big 12. You play Arizona, who's in that second group at Arizona. You go Cincinnati at home, which is kind of all right. Let's take a breath here. Then you get a bye week. Then you come to Lubbock, which of the last 4, we'll see how Lubbock is at that point in the season. If Texas Tech is 8-0 or whatever, That'll be a pretty raucous environment. If Texas Tech is not 8-0, it'll be a mediocre environment. And then you finish with Utah at home at Arrowhead, which will be really interesting to see how many Colorado fans are at Arrowhead there with the Kansas Jayhawks. And then you finish at home against Oklahoma State. So the potential is there because of where you play people. You've got some home games there to finish the world against some of these top teams in the Big 12, allegedly. But you also have, all those teams were ranked there, except for Texas Tech and Cincinnati preseason. So you have a really tough schedule of the group because I don't think Texas Tech plays Utah or Kansas State or Kansas. So there are teams out there that don't have to play the top teams. Colorado has to play all of them.
Yeah, welcome back, right?
Yeah, welcome back,
excited to be here.
Play all the good teams.
Yeah, and like I said, my concern is that we don't have the depth, and unfortunately, the hardest part of our schedule is right at the end. So if we don't cover my over 6 wins by week 8, I'm going to be calling the casino to see if I can cash that one out because it's tough. You're right; it's a tough schedule, and the problem is looking at the Big 12. I have Cincinnati's supposed to be really bad this year. We actually were guests on their podcast. They agree they're going to be bad this year, but I don't know. It's so hard to tell in the Big 12 because it feels so open that I would not be surprised if Cincinnati's kind of fun and flirty this year. I know, they've got some stuff they got to work on rebuild wise, but they should not be terrible. So it's just hard to look at that schedule and feel any solace. It's tough. And these are schools that are used to playing in the cold. So, even coming to the Flatirons and snow is not going to be a problem for any of these teams. And we'll see. It is a tough schedule, and you would think that coming back, maybe we would get a little bit of a handshake, high five. But and I think you mentioned it. We have to go to the bounce house, right? So that UCF is not supposed to be very good this year, but that is a tough environment to play in. So there's really no free lunches on that schedule, including in our preseason or our non-conference games that should have been easier if we'd known that we were going to be transferring conferences. I'm sure they would have made it an easier schedule, but iron sharpens iron, and Shedeur wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft, so he better go earn it. Here's his opportunity.
He does have the opportunity because that schedule, I think, will could be a star maker if you go out and win a bunch of games and compete in the Big 12. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us. If you want to tell us where we can find you and maybe speak to Athlon Sports for a second if you want to on the way out, you can. That hit piece that was put out against Deion Sanders and the boys. Otherwise, just tell us where we can find you and listen to you this season.
Yeah, Topher, maybe you want to hit the Athlon. I mentioned this before we started recording, but Colorado fans are not surprised. It's been constant. Everyone wants to get clicks off of Colorado, and so a lot of these accusations end up being totally false. But long story short is, it gets clicks and it gets attention, and anything Deion Sanders does is sensationalized and news for whatever reason. So if you liked our we got a podcast going. It's at Folsom Frenzy Podcast. We're on X. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. So we'd love if you can give us a follow. Would love to come back on and talk hoops. Colorado has been respectable in the Pac-12 in hoops. Is not going to be respectable in this new Big 12.
We're not going to win a single game. We're not going to win a single conference game.
Is a murderer's row, and we're picking a bad time to take a reload year. But hopefully we can come back, talk more about that. But really appreciate you guys having us on. And Topher, I don't know if you want to touch on the hit piece, but otherwise, give us a follow. We really appreciate the opportunity to hop on, and we'll be cheering guns up for Texas Tech. I mentioned always been a Texas Tech fan since I won a bunch of money at a craps table in Vegas with a Texas Tech fan. So I'll be cheering for you guys every game except for October or November, whatever it is, when we go out to Lubbock.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going to remove you guys. Thank you, Topher. All right. It's a little quick to do that with 2 people instead of just 1. That was the Folsom Frenzy Pod there from Colorado. I don't know that there's a more divisive team than Colorado in the Big 12 this year. I agree with what Chase was saying. They could go 8-4. They could go 4-8, as Topher said. I do not know. That schedule is what it is, man. And Shador is what he is, and Travis Hunter is elite at 2 positions. The offensive line, can they run the ball? Can they control the clock in the fourth quarter? I don't know what they can do there in the Big 12. But, of course, a lot of what you say about Colorado, you say about a bunch of teams in the Big 12. They've got elite at some positions, but not quite the depth there. All right, Money. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks on Petty Patrick Mahomes. And he's got some more bullets for his gun. We have the NFL list, the top 100 come out this week. And Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, and somebody else are in front of the 2-time MVP. Now, I know Lamar Jackson was also a 2-time MVP and just won the MVP. But it's just fairly crazy to me that Patrick Mahomes is not at least number 2 in this list. Now, I've got 2 questions for you, Money. Is this the guys that run the top 100 list creating drama and fudging results? Or is this NFL peers getting tired of losing to Patrick Mahomes? It's one of the 2.
I think it's probably the second one. This is obviously voted on by players, I do believe. And so I do think there's probably some general fatigue of just, seeing the same guy consistently at the top every year. And I know it feels sort of like, obviously, like I've got my scarlet colored glasses on, and it's really easy to sit here and say, like, hey, why isn't Patrick Mahomes the best in the world? But I think when you really, like, if you lay it out as objectively as possible, it's really hard to not make the case that he really is. And I know Tyreek Hill had a really, really good year last year. I know that the revamped schedule probably helped some of that. And even as he battled through injuries, he came back and was productive. But yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is really freaking good, but I don't think that he's the best player in the NFL. I think that's Patrick Mahomes, and I think that's pretty clear and obvious.
I mean, is Tyreek Hill considered the best wide receiver? I know he's up there, but I mean,
Like
Justin Jefferson was
Jefferson, yeah.
Justin Jefferson. I mean, is there a more? Let me ask you 2 questions again. Is there a more important position than quarterback? And is there an argument to who the best quarterback in the NFL is?
No to both.
I mean, what are we doing? Like, literally, what are we doing here? Beyond just riling up Patrick Mahomes for another season. I mean, he already has the puppet thing and the NFL Top 100 thing, and he's going to count to 4 again. Well, I don't know if they play the Dolphins. If they play the Dolphins in the playoffs again, rest in peace to the Dolphins. They're going to get pieced by 40. And Patrick Mahomes is going to count to 4 after his 4th touchdown. That's exactly what he did to the Ravens when he was ranked 4th a few years ago, and Lamar Jackson was number 1.
And I think it's funny too that the Chiefs just smashed the Dolphins in the playoffs. And I know it was the second coldest game of all time or whatever, and they were in Arrowhead, and the Dolphins were banged up. I just finished watching through their Hard Knock season. They were dealing with a lot of injuries, but I mean, still, like that, it's got to play a little bit of a factor. But I really do wish they would publish these lists and kind of break it out like an AP poll, so I can see how many people received number 1 votes. Because I think it was Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, and CMC, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
And I think I can definitely see like Lamar Jackson getting some votes, obviously his own teammates. But across the league, I can see Lamar Jackson getting some votes. I can see CMC getting quite a few first place votes. I think I would have probably both of those guys ahead of Tyreek Hill before I put Tyreek Hill first, and especially above Patrick Mahomes.
I know Tyreek Hill had 1,700 yards, had a really good year. And I'm really not as drawn off sides on this as I'm portraying it. It really doesn't matter to me, but it just is weird to have a wide receiver as the best player in the NFL. Like that just doesn't jive with me. I mean, it's probably a defensive lineman. I mean, it could be Myles Garrett is the best player in the NFL. T.J. Watt when he's been healthy. I mean, those kind of guys. It could be Trent Williams, the left tackle with the 49ers. I mean, that's legitimately the best players in the NFL. And then you have to go quarterback with Patrick and Lamar. Joe Burrow, again, when he's been healthy, has probably been the third, the fourth. Maybe Josh Allen is up there. Everyone thinks Dak Prescott's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Nobody would argue that. So it's just weird to me. It has to be one or the other. It has to be that the NFL top 100 executives or whoever was counting up the votes would be like, ha ha ha. It would be funny to put Patrick fourth to see what happens. Ha ha ha. And especially his former wide receiver. Ha ha ha. Let's put him number 1. I mean, that's scenario number 1. In scenario number 2 is Jamar Chase a couple of weeks ago when they're teasing the list saying, I'm not saying his name kind of stuff, where every Bills player was voting for someone else. Every Broncos player, every Raiders player, every player that every Chargers player is voting against Patrick Mahomes. So maybe the thing is to even be fourth is pretty crazy. That he made it above all of those to get to where he is at fourth to respond, I guess, to all the haters. I don't know. It was funny to me. All right, we also have camp videos coming out. Any of them surprise you or pique your interest? I know Micah Hudson had a fingertip catch that caught Patrick Mahomes' eye. We also have OTC stuff going on, or training camp, whatever they call it. I guess they already did the OTAs. But you have the training camps with Xavier Worthy burning people at Chiefs camp. So, any football catching your eye yet so far?
Yeah, I really think Micah Hudson's going to be pretty good. And I know that's probably not some revolutionary statement to hear. I mean, he's a blue chip prospect, best recruit this program has ever seen. But I've really tried to temper my expectations through this and kind of keep a low bar. And, if he contributes, that's great. He's going to elevate the ceiling of this year's team. But if he doesn't, I think there's enough depth to kind of come around him and supplement that. But I kind of get it. Like, I know Joey says stuff to, get some juice in the building and raise some eyeballs. But I think he means it when he says this is going to be a guy who's contributing week 1. I mean, he looks really, really sharp running his routes. I'm not a wide receivers coach by any means, but the footwork looks really good, almost to the point where he looks like he's running his routes like a little bit slower than everyone else on the field, just because he's so calculated with where he's cutting and where he's at on the sideline. Everything looks super, super sharp for a true freshman. And then obviously the hands. I mean, that's a non-negotiable for a receiver, but kind of the degree of difficulty that you've seen, even as things have just slowly trickled out. I mean, obviously a banner week for Coach Beans, getting some love from both the 4th best player in the NFL and Texas Tech football. But yeah, man, I really do think this is a really good position group. We've talked about it almost every week that we've talked about position groups, because I just keep coming back to this group and thinking, man, this could be the catalyst for really breaking open the offense. Because I know last year there were a handful of struggles. Obviously, Barron having one arm was a big part of that, and having to rotate throughout quarterbacks. Offensive line was sketchy at times, but receiver was really kind of an unknown for you throughout the season. You just didn't really know who the guy was going to be. It was different every week. You didn't really have a true breakout star in that position. Just kind of guys showing up and doing the work. But I really do think this is the position group, in my opinion. And that feels kind of crazy to say, because none of this works without the offensive line clicking. And you've got to be good up front defensively, especially against teams like Utah and Colorado, and being able to apply pressure to a guy like Shador Sanders. I think that's huge, and I'm still really worried about corner and want somebody to talk me into that. But this just feels like the position group, because you know what you're getting out of Taj, you know what you can get out of a healthy Baron Morton. But if you can really get some weapons around there and force defenses to come up to the line, and when they're distracted by Taj, then you can go over the top. I just think it's a huge opportunity for this team. And so the more Micah Hudson I can see, the more my expectations are kind of getting crazy.
You mentioned Micah Hudson looking slow in his routes, calculated. It reminds me of Amari Cooper, because a guy like Amari Cooper, or even like a Devontae Adams, they do look slow. And then they're open by 15 steps. And it's like, oh, well, the double move toasted the corner because it was so crisp. Or the inside out route, not the out, kind of the angle route, is just murder. So it does excite you. I know you're mostly seeing him run on air and just normal routes with maybe a guy standing at the top of the route to kind of key the movement, but it's impressive. He looks good. You also saw some defensive line action there from Don Williams' Twitter account today. They look big, which is nice. It's just they're only showing highlights. Nobody's showing the drops or the overthrows, so you kind of take it into kind of with a grain of salt. But I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it was Nathan that posted a clip of Barron ripping some quick throws, and he missed one of them pretty bad at the end. And I was wondering if there were going to be quite a few comments. I never returned to the post. I saw it like right after it was posted, but I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, oh no, the off-season opportunity to have manufactured outrage. It's coming.
We also have this breaking news. The Green Bay Packers worked out with Texas Tech Red Raider Jonathan Garibay today per Rob Domofsky. Garibay went 15 of 16 on field goals in his final season at Texas Tech, including the 62-yard game winner against Iowa State. His last kick as a Red Raider was a miss. Frustrating. Did he I guess he didn't kick in the bowl game. He didn't make a field goal in the bowl. Well, I guess you didn't need to. You were scoring touchdowns in that bowl game. Suck it, Ole Miss. So that's cool for Garibay. I thought he would get more of an opportunity than he did. He kind of he was really bad at training camp with the Cowboys, and then never really got another shot. I thought Trey Wolf would get more of a run there with Tennessee as well, but just happens how it happens.
Yeah, Garibay was with the Renegades for a little bit last season. Is that right?
He was. I think he made some field goals there with the Renegades. So, UFL legend Jonathan Garibay. A couple of Olympic notes. Some Texas Tech guys playing well. Playing in the golf. And then you have some track and field athletes. They're really getting underway. I do have a bit of a bone to pick with two things. The first thing, the ACC. Don't be tweeting out Stanford athletes. They have not played for the ACC. I know we do that all the time as a joke on the Gauchos account, Big 12 legend Steve Young, that kind of stuff. We had fun with the alumni group that is being a part of the Big 12 here this year, which officially made guys like Kevin Youkilis and Taco Fall Big 12 legends. But the ACC tweet that was like, ACC legend Katie Ledecky. It's like, come on. Let's not do this. You already look bad. And then to officially tweet that out, which I would not put it past the Big 12 to do the same thing. But it's just kind of cheesy. I mean, the Pac-12 can go ahead and do that. The Pac-12 can still tweet. I don't think they've been locked out of their accounts yet. They can do that.
I think the Big 12 has. I think I've seen one. It was maybe Arizona State during the Olympics. But the thing with the ACC that was funny to me is like it was Katie Ledecky. Like it's It's the easiest layup of all time to
Yeah.
run a victory lap around. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Katie Ledecky, the greatest swimmer of all time, definitely went to an ACC school, and we're claiming her. It's funny. The second thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, they've got a camera inside the net of the volleyball nets. Not like down the line. They've worked out the technology to put a camera inside the leather wrap at the top of the net on the volleyball outfit. How do they not have a camera straight down the line of the track and field that they can cut to on the broadcast? I don't get it. We had one of the best 100-meter dashes of all time. And the 6 replays they showed were from behind by a foot or two, you can't tell. In front by a foot or two, you can't tell. Put a freaking camera in the pole right there. They have cameras in the pylons in football games. Now, there's usually too much going on you can't really see, but we can put a 4K camera somewhere right down the line. You just the GoPros are magnetic. You can put a GoPro right there on the pole looking straight across the line. I don't understand how we don't have that capability. It's just crazy to me. Now, finally, they showed a couple, like the laser shot or whatever else, but it looked like it was shot from a potato. Then we had an aerial shot that was pretty awesome. Also, if I was one of those 2 other guys that lost, I think Curly had the bronze and then the Jamaican gentleman who was second, I would be a little bit peeved that my foot was a foot across the line, but Lyle's collarbone crossed the line first because it's the first torso through, not the first body part. So I would be pretty upset with that too. If my toe crossed the finish line first, I'd win the gold. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. But to have the technology of the camera in the volleyball net to watch the serves with a really cool angle, but to not have the capabilities to have a quick highlight right down the line at the starting line, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, give them a NASCAR finish camera.
Yes, it's exactly what we need. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Tech's football social media has hardly shown any shots of Micah Hudson on their post. You think that's by design or just not going to be a main focus until game time, or do you think he's just not up to speed at the college game yet and overshadowed? They've showed a couple. They showed the fingertip grab. That was awesome. I would assume in that respect, they're trying to show as many guys as possible and not just flood the timeline with Micah Hudson. They showed a Josh Kelly highlight today. They don't show quarterbacks generally. When you see an interception, they'll cut to the interception. I think that's always pretty funny. I would assume you'll see a lot of Baron Morton highlights just because they want to highlight the starter there. But you have, 6 guys that could start at wide receiver that you'll be showing off. And we've seen highlights from Cam Dickey and Valdez. I don't think you'll see much from Taj Brooks. I doubt he practices until 2 weeks before the games or practices much. I think Joey said in the presser the other day that Valdez and Dickey were going to get a bunch of reps with the ones. So, which does not shock me or make me nervous at all for Taj Brooks. And during the season, you could go full Kirk Cousins with Taj Brooks and just put him in a T-shirt every Tuesday, or let him go to Kohl's with his wife or whatever he does. I don't know if Taj Brooks is married, but just let Taj, no contact every Tuesday and just let him hang out.
Dickey looked good going down that sideline, man.
Yes, he did. I have another small confession here. I played a lot of football on College Football 25. I'm having a hard time. Not a hard time. it's easy for me to split reality from the game. But I will say I will have some of these players in my mind of like Jaden Cofield is an animal on the game in that first season. His bull rush is just unreal. And if I don't see that in real life, I'm gonna be like, man, where's the power? Where's the power, Cofield? It's stupid that I'm doing that, but I'm also gonna be like, oh, Barron can make that throw in the game. Why can't he do it right there? So, but I will say, Micah Hudson, just playing through the game, Micah Hudson is
Dude, he's a dog.
he's insane.
He's so fast.
His change of direction is insane. I mean, you don't even need the juke moves; you just do it yourself. He's pretty crazy. Otherwise, I did play Jeff Haxton, Texas Tech versus Oklahoma State. And let's say we didn't finish the first game. And then the second game, I was up, I think, 28-7. And he tied it up in the fourth quarter. And then I think I won. I went ahead by a touchdown and missed an extra point, and then he was driving and did not score on the final drive. I think Alan Bowman just stopped, and I think his controller died. So I got a little lucky there at the end that he didn't win by one, but that was a fun game. Should be a fun dirt bowl. So do you have any other Texas? I know you're playing through the Texas Tech dynasty. Do you have any players do you have any breakout candidates based on the game?
So Micah's for sure one. Like even the route running is really, really good. I was thinking earlier, man, like he ran like a cross right by the line of scrimmage and got it. We were at like the 30-yard line and broke that thing open for 70 yards. And I'm playing on All-American. I'm thinking like, oh man, if we can get some of this and kind of him lined up on the inside and then sometimes he'll line up on the outside. And I'm like, hey, this is a kind of a good blueprint of maybe what next year could look like. But outside of Micah, I'm a big offense guy, so sometimes I'll sim through the defense, especially if I'm playing a dynasty. It's just it takes too long. I suck at it, especially on higher difficulty. So I'll breeze through that. But on offense, it's Micah Hudson, and then Coy Aiken is really, really good too because he's got the yak stuff and he can catch some screens around the line of scrimmage and then go after the catch. But then he's also got really, really good contested catching traffic, deep routes. So I really like using them on kind of like fades, but then also like some slants, some bubble screens. So I think those are my two, which are both receivers. But I like using both of those guys quite a bit.
Also, Caleb Douglas has incredible release on the deep threat. So if you're in press, just send Caleb Douglas on a go, and he'll score a touchdown. I think otherwise, the linebackers are great. There's not much pass rush beyond. I think it's Cofield there in the middle. But I've changed. I've played Rodriguez at defensive end and kept Ben Roberts at the linebacker pretty much. But it's always weird to try to figure out like where the star is on the defense and trying to get the right guys in the right places. And if you're playing them at the slot corner, you kind of have to list like AJ McCarty at a linebacker position or a strong safety. And then he's also playing other places in different defenses because it's hard to put him in the right place. But anyways, it's fun. I think Jordan Sanford was a guy that had a pretty good year. Brendan Jordan had a great year on defense. I'm so far into it now that there are other guys that I've recruited that are Texas Tech legends that just they do not exist.
You got like Manny All-Star, all-time passing yards leader.
Yeah. We also have I did with my nephew Road to Glory. We're going back and forth playing that one together. At quarterback, went to Michigan year one. Nobody cares about any of this. But we went to Michigan year one, and then transferred to Texas Tech to air it out a little more because we just were turning around, handing it off to Donovan Edwards year one. And Cam Dickey in the Road to Glory was the starter in year two after Tosh Brooks vaulted Cameron Valdez his senior season. And he had like 2 99-yard runs in back-to-back weeks. It was awesome. But he's potentially exciting to watch there from the game side. Yes, we did, Big Hen. We called each other to make sure my hat and or his hat and my shirt matched. We're cute like that. All right, that's all I got, Money. You have anything else?
I have a quick final thought, and that is on Christian Anderson. So I think it might have flown over a lot of people's heads, kind of buried under football season coming up, and the Olympics are taking up a lot of time, and rightfully so. But Christian Anderson, Texas Tech's freshman backup point guard, who will be on the team this upcoming season, was playing in the FIBA U18 tournament over the past week, I guess, because it ended today and started about a week before that. Christian Anderson is German, so he is playing for Germany. Germany won the tournament. They actually went 7-0, the only undefeated team in the tournament. So they were the best team in the tournament, and Christian Anderson was the best player on their team. He finished averaging 20 points per game, 2.5 boards, 5 assists, and a steal on 46 from the field, 32 from deep, and 80 from the line. So he finished 6th in the pool of players in points per game. And there are some really, really good basketball players that are playing in this tournament. Ben Seraph, who plays for Israel, he had like 40, 10, and 6 one game. Julius Price is going to be playing D1 basketball next year, actually a team that Texas Tech might see in Brooklyn as a part of their tournament there. But I think this is kind of flying under the radar, and I think it's hard for a lot of people to make sense of what a tournament like this means, or what a performance in this tournament means. But I've kind of held my stance from the beginning that I think Christian Anderson is going to be your backup point guard next year, and I think that's just kind of been reiterated to me seeing what he looks like in a full-blown competition. Like, this is not tune-up, this is not scrimmages. You're playing for something in this tournament, something that matters. And he was one of the best players in this tournament. Shot the ball a lot, which is probably why his numbers are not so great. 32%, it's not horrible, especially for a true freshman, but he shot like 5 of 11 in the first game, and then kind of came back to earth a little bit. But you still had like a 2 for 7, a 4 for 6. Those aren't horrible. You obviously want to see it increase, but definitely a working point. But I think he's a guy who off the bench is going to give you a big scoring boost. I said this in the Discord the other day, and I think it's true. I think it's going to be a very different flavor of offense when he's on the floor compared to when Elijah Hawkins, your starting point guard, will be on the floor. Hawkins is very much that true facilitator type. He wants to play make. He wants to get the ball to his teammates. Christian Anderson is a bucket getter, and he is a shooter. And sometimes the possession ends with him, and you're going to have to live with that. But I think kind of bringing him and starting him out in a role where he's coming off the bench, he's a part of something bigger than the guys around him. He's not having to be the main offensive vehicle. I think that's going to be a really big asset for his career, but also for Texas Tech as the years go on. And obviously, you've got to retain him. That's the name of the game. But I think it bodes well for him to kind of come into a system where he can do his thing and he can do what he does well, but he doesn't have to be the crux of the entire offense. I think that was a big issue with Pop Isaacs was, okay, this is a guy who does what he does, but when nothing else is clicking around the lineup and he goes 3 for 20 from the field, you've just completely shot yourself out of a game. I think this is going to be a really nice piece to bring off the bench in Christian Anderson, where it's like, hey, go take 10 shots. If you make 2 of them, we'll try again the next night, because it's all right, because we've got these pieces in the starting lineup that are there. So really, really impressive performance by him this past week. I think it's caught a couple of people's eyes. I saw Fran Fraschilla tweet about it. Obviously, Kellen Buffington is all over it because that's his guy, and this is his program that he's trying to build. But I think it's something to note for sure. And you never want to make projections on what year one is going to look like, but I think he'll be your backup point guard. I don't know what your other option is, unless Chance McMillan, who I have heard has improved quite a bit this offseason, unless he's developed a true point guard game. I think that's going to be Christian Anderson for you off the bench next season.
So this is the FIBA Eurobasket under 18.
That's correct.
All right. So I was Googling Christian Anderson a little bit while you were talking. He is listed as 5'11" on the 24/7 website, which it was probably his high school height. The Texas Tech site has him at 6'2". And I was looking for the Germany roster. Here he is, number 3, Christian Anderson, also listed as 6'2". So maybe that gives a little credence to the Texas Tech roster. They're not going full professional wrestling on the 3-foot jump. But if he has hit a growth spurt and is 6'2", you could even say he could be 6'3" or 6'4" by the time he's a starter next year. I don't know how much more he'll grow, but 3 inches as a senior seems to be pretty good there.
Yeah, I would say he's definitely closer to 6'2" than he is to 5'11" at this point. And from what I've heard, he's put on quite a bit of muscle already this offseason, which is exactly what you need out of your true freshman. Is you've got to get their body ready first before Big 12 play, because that's going to be, the one thing. You can have all the talent, but if you can't go down there and bang around with, 6'6", 200-pound guys, you're going to find yourself on the bench. And so I think if he can keep growing height-wise, obviously that's a huge plus, but he's, understands what he can control, and he's been in the weight room and is growing in that regard. So I think if he continues to get taller and bigger, that's only going to, improve his chances of being a contributor at the Big 12 level.
It's exciting. I was on the Republic of Football equivalent there at Dave Campbell's, their Texas basketball podcast. And I mentioned Christian Anderson as just kind of the last guy, not the last guy on the bench, but kind of the last guy in the rotation, is a guy that might play a little bit. But certainly after this tournament he was in internationally, I think you have a little bit more expectation, maybe, as you're saying, to see him as a guy in the rotation and not the final guy getting minutes kind of at the end of a game. I don't think point guard is like thin, certainly, but the true point guard position is, you can go out and play maybe a small ball with Kerwin and Chance McMillan, and even have Darian Williams as like a point forward kind of thing and be okay. But I don't think you're going to want to start games that way, and I don't think you want to play that kind of rotation for like 30 minutes. So I think Christian Anderson may be sneaky as a guy who could be maybe pretty impactful on the season.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it in terms of true point guard and kind of that being the position of need, because you obviously bring in one of the best playmakers in college basketball in recent years in Elijah Hawkins, but then you look at the rest of the roster. You got Kevin Overton, who has not done a lot with the ball in his hands since he's been at the collegiate level. You bring in Jazz Henderson as a PWO. He is not near the size of Christian Anderson at this point. So he's probably not as league ready. You've got Chance McMillan. Again, what does he look like in this next year as a super senior? Does he have a little bit of a handle now? Can he play make? Can he do some stuff on the ball as well? But outside of that, you really don't have a lot. And I can't remember exactly what McCaslin said the other day, but he was kind of talking about it and just mentioning he really likes what they can do with Hawkins initiating, and they want to kind of involve Darian Williams as well and kind of allow him to initiate some of the offense. But outside of those two guys, you do need a guy who can bring the ball up the floor and set things in motion at the very least. And I think Christian Anderson can give you that, day one. And so maybe I'm wrong and maybe it doesn't pan out, but I think at the very least, this is a guy that can give you, 10, 12 minutes a night. And you're okay with that. You're not getting beat off the floor every time he's out there. I think he can be a contributor year one.
I'm in. All right. We started with Colorado today. Let's finish with Colorado. Here's my final thoughts. I have this video. I didn't want to play it to the other guys, but I'm going to play it for you and tell me what you think.
We having contact. Take care of your guys. Like I'm going to tell you, do not touch the receivers. Don't get near the quarterback and leave Travis alone. We got that? Sir. We understand that? Sir. I'm not playing favors. I'm just being 100. It is what it is. When you get to the next level, every quarterback is worth $250 million, right? You think they're going to let you touch it? All right, so let's play like we're on the next level.
Okay, so there's a point about quarterback, which is I can't even let you make your point. I've already got so many thoughts. You've got a point about a quarterback making $250 million, which is a really interesting hypothetical because, two of those guys that are on that roster will make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
2 to 5 maybe for feeling really ambitious. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. And also, what does that have to do with Travis Hunter? Like, if the hypothetical about the quarterback was like, okay, maybe I'm tracking with you. Okay, but what's the deal with Travis Hunter now?
Yeah, in the first week of August, that quarterback has a red jersey on. Nobody's touching him. In the first week of practice, he's got a red jersey on. Nobody's touching him. I understand the quarterback thing. But if your wide receivers aren't getting touched until game 1 against North Dakota State, you're getting your ass kicked. If Travis Hunter doesn't have a single piece of contact until week 1, he's exploding his spleen again. Like, I don't know. Colorado might be soft. If they have zero contact with any skill positions until North Dakota State, they might get punched in the face. So I don't know. Yeah. Again, I said it earlier. I think Colorado could come in and make some noise. I also think they could go 2-10. I'm down 2. From earlier.
I was looking at that schedule and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'd touch the over on 5.5. Man, it's tough. They've got a brutal conference slate, and
yeah,
I don't think that NDSU game is a cupcake by any matters. Nebraska and Lincoln is tough. Colorado State, that was a close game last year.
That's a fiery matchup, Colorado State. I legitimately think they can beat Arizona State.
Baylor?
I think they can beat Baylor.
Cincinnati?
I think they can. That's in Colorado?
I think so.
I think they can beat Cincinnati. But and I think they'll upset one of Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Utah. I think they're all in Colorado. So I think they'll get one of those. But these road Big 12 games, I don't know. I just don't know. And I know they're familiar with Arizona and Arizona State and Utah. But man, they're playing the top half of the Big 12. I mean, I think they play in the betting odd favorites the top half of the Big 12. And Cincinnati and Arizona State and Baylor. But the other 6, I think, are the top 6. Welcome to the Big 12. All right, that's all I got. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Final thoughts? All right. Love y'all.